Welcome to day 8, and we are going to start with another wonderful breakfast in our hotel. This is the day that we are going to explore London. And there's Tina. She is just so cute with her little cup of coffee. I said we're going to explore London. We are, but first, we went to the place that I have been most excited about this entire trip, Windsor Castle. Windsor Castle has been home to royalty for 1,000 years. It is the oldest and largest occupied castle in the world. It is open to visitors throughout the year, and it was founded by William the Conqueror in the 11th century. It has since been the home of 40 monarchs. Now, while I was inside Windsor Castle, there was a point in which I was not allowed to take videos or pictures anymore, but I can definitely show you the outside. There are state apartments here, ceremonial rooms, historic rooms, semi-state rooms. Queen Mary's dollhouse is here, and that was an incredible sight to see. St. George's Chapel, the moat room, changing of the guard, and other treasures of the castle, as well as the burial place of the Queen and other monarchs in the past. Now, because I was so very limited in what I could show you and what I could do inside of these rooms and inside of this castle and inside of these churches, I did rely on the internet to give you some photos of some things that I saw. So these are not things that I was able to take a photograph of because that was not allowed. I do want to show you some of those items. This right here is the grand reception room, decorated with real gold and chandeliers. It was once used as the main ballroom in the castle, and Queen Elizabeth II entertained her guests here. Perhaps the most striking piece on display is the large urn presented to Queen Victoria by the Tsar Nicholas I in 1839, and one of the largest examples outside Russia. A visit to Windsor Castle is a chance to see among the world's greatest collection of paintings and artists. A highlight has to be this remarkable portrait of King Charles I. This huge painting of Charles I on horseback portrays him as a ruler, a warrior, and a knight. The castle is packed with other extraordinary treasures, including incredible furniture, vases, and sculptures. But I must say, I was literally my breath was taken away when I saw the art pieces in Windsor Castle. This picture doesn't do this painting any justice. All I could tell my students when we walked by these paintings were they are so saturated with color. They're phenomenal. And like I said, this photo is not nearly this is not what it looks like in person. So I implore you to go look up this painting on the internet and try to find a really good version of it. But all of the art in Windsor Castle was stunning and incredibly saturated with color, unlike anything I've ever seen. You absolutely cannot miss the chance to experience life in miniature form with the famous Queen Mary's dollhouse. It is on permanent display at Windsor Castle. It's really an unexpected find. I knew nothing about this. This dollhouse was designed for Queen Mary in 1924 by Sir Edwin to showcase the finest artists and craftspeople of the time. You can peek inside the rooms filled with tiny furniture, art, and books, and even electricity and running water. This is a ridiculous childhood dream brought to life. Throughout 2024, they celebrated the 100th anniversary of Queen Mary's dollhouse. Let's talk for just a moment about St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. St. George's Chapel was founded in the 14th century by King Edward III and extensively enlarged in the late 15th century. The chapel has been the scene of many royal services, weddings, and burials. You will famously know this chapel from two very important events, and that would be Harry and Meghan's wedding in 2018, and also the funeral and burial of Queen Elizabeth II. Here are some photos of ours from our trip and our time in Windsor Castle, some wonderful students, my son and myself included, and the beautiful sights that we saw along the way. Enjoy. After touring all day at Windsor Castle, it was time to eat lunch, and we were excited to eat at the Ivy. The kids wanted to get some burgers, and these were very delicious burgers. My dad got a fish dish, and I, of course, got curry. This is the Royal Albert Hall. It's a concert hall on the northern edge of South Kensington, London, England, and it has a seating capacity of about 5,000 people. Since the hall's opening by Queen Victoria in 1871, the world's leading artists from many performance genres have appeared on its stage. Over its 153-year history, the hall has hosted people from various fields, including meetings held by Winston Churchill, Albert Einstein, Lennox Lewis, Muhammad Ali, and Eric Clapton. This is the Albert Memorial, which is located directly north of the Royal Albert Hall in Kensington Gardens. It was commissioned by Queen Victoria in memory of her beloved husband, Prince Albert, who died in 1861. It takes the form of an ornate canopy or a pavilion that stands 176 feet tall in the style of a Gothic ciborium over the high altar of a church. It shelters a statue of the prince facing south. It took over 10 years to complete. The £120,000 cost today is the equivalent of about 10 million pounds. There's no telling what you're going to see, and yes, that is a sculpture of a rhino hanging out of a window. And the story there is pretty spectacular, but unfortunately I don't have time to tell it all. So go to Google, do yourself a favor, and check it out. This is the Wellington Arch. It's one of London's best-known landmarks and was built in 1825. It was originally intended as an outer entrance to Buckingham Palace. At first it stood facing the Hyde Park screen, but it was moved to its present position in the late 1800s. Its original design was never completed, and a controversial giant statue of the Duke of Wellington was erected on top of it in 1846. The quadriga sculpture that crowns the arch today was placed there in 1912. This is the Victoria Memorial. It's a monument made for Queen Victoria. Located at the end of the Mall in London by the sculptor Sir Thomas Brock, it was designed in 1901 and it was unveiled on May 16, 1911, although it was not completed until 1924. And finally, that brings us to Buckingham Palace. This is the royal residence in London and the administrative headquarters of the monarch of the United Kingdom. Located in the city of Westminster, the palace is often at the center of state occasions and royal hospitality. It has been a focal point for the British people at times of national rejoicing and mourning. These streets, these gates, and the statue and everything about Buckingham Palace is so recognizable to anyone that has followed the royal family. And something that you'll notice in just a moment is the famous balcony where all of the royal families and couples come out to greet the public. It is a beautiful place, and I am just so happy to see it. There's that balcony up close and personal because I have watched so many famous events happen right there. We then continued our tour through London on the bus, and we made our way to Westminster Abbey, which is an absolutely gorgeous and astounding church. Since 1066, it has been the location of the coronations of 40 English and British monarchs and a burial site for 18 English, Scottish, and British monarchs. At least 16 royal weddings have taken place at the Abbey since 1100, and one of the most famous and most recent would be Prince William and Kate. The Abbey is the burial site of more than 3,300 people. And that brings us to Big Ben, which is the nickname for the Great Bell of the Great Clock of Westminster. and by extension for the clock tower itself, which stands at the north end of the Palace of Westminster in London. Originally known simply as the Clock Tower, it was renamed Elizabeth Tower in 2012 to mark the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. The clock is a striking clock with 5 bells. But besides the clock and besides that beautiful church, one of the things here that literally took my breath away, I've never seen anything like it, was the Houses of Parliament. There's also a statue of Winston Churchill here in this area, as well as many other statues of some very famous people. We continued our tour of London, and when I tell you that I absolutely cannot remember everything important in this city, I think you could be here a month or longer and never see it all. Someone famous lives down that street, and I don't recall who, but everywhere we turned, there was a photographic moment. There was a portion of history. It's amazing. There is a wonderful shot of the London Eye that we had ridden on the day before to see the city. And look at the London Bridge. It is beautiful. And there are churches and buildings and structures that are just important. The Waterloo Hospital, the Royal Waterloo Hospital for Children. And I kind of fell in love with London, and I didn't know that I was going to. And my best friend Leslie was, I think, telling me the whole time, you're going to fall in love with London. I love London. And I didn't really take her seriously, but I do now. We ended our day with a delicious fish and chip dinner with mushy peas and a decadent dessert. It was a fantastic day.